Okay, so I'm going to say this. And by the time I finish saying this, I'm sure a whole lot of y'all are going to be saying, "Okay, Jordan, so give me more. What are you saying?" I'm not going to go too far with it. I'm just going to say this and be done with it, okay? So, people always ask me, "Are the Hurricanes back?" They always ask me that. And I told y'all when I was in high school, I got in all kinds of trouble with my friends when I was like, "Oh yeah, the Canes are back," because we started 3-0 or something like that. And I vowed to never say the Canes are back until we get to the playoffs and win the whole thing, win the national championship, and then get back into the playoffs 2 more years after that. So that was my thought process on this whole "are the Canes back" thing. And if you ask me, are they back? No, they're not. But let me say this: there's also people who are asking me, "Do you think your Canes could win the whole thing?" I've been hearing this question since probably week 2 or 3, and I've always said I don't think we quite there yet. We don't have the depth to do that. And I'll always compare us to teams like Georgia and Alabama. So this is what I'm gonna say. Usually it takes 6 or 7 weeks to figure out who your team is. And I think I totally know who this Hurricanes team is. I'm sold on the fact that this offense we have is the best offense in the nation. I think it's the best. I think we have a national championship offense. Our defense can be a mess sometimes. It can be a mess. Um, and I've always looked at our entire team, special teams, offense, and defense, and I've said, yeah, we are really good. We're much better than we were last year, but there's no way that we could compete with the top teams in the nation like Georgia. But after watching these top teams, all of these teams can be had. I've watched Penn State multiple times this year. They were undefeated. And I was like, that team is not that good. I watched Alabama play a few games. And I was like, Alabama can be had this year. They can be beat this year. They're not unbeatable. I've watched Georgia multiple times this year. And I've thought, they're not invincible either. They can be beat. They got some weaknesses in their team. Oregon looks really good. That's the one team where I'm like, ooh, they look pretty solid. So every team that I see, Texas, I don't think Texas is very good. So I'm not going to jump out the window and say these Hurricanes can win the national championship. What I am going to say is when I watch these Hurricanes and then I watch these other teams who are in the top 5, I don't see much difference at all. I actually see the Hurricanes doing things better than a whole lot of these teams in the SEC who get all this praise. So, if you ask me what am I saying here, I'm just going to leave it right there. People keep asking me, do the Hurricanes have a real chance to win the national championship? Up until this week, I've said, no, they can't do that. They don't have the depth. They don't have the bodies up front. They can't do it. After seeing what these Hurricanes can do and then watching these other teams week in and week out, all I'm saying is there's not a whole lot of difference in these teams anymore. Not much difference at all. So I'll say that and I'll leave it. I'll leave the rest to y'all's imagination on what else I'm thinking. That's as far as I'm gonna go. And I know a whole lot of y'all are saying, "Okay, Jordan, what's next? Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say what you think about our national championship odds. Go ahead and say it." I'm not going any further than what I said. So what we'll do at the rest of the video is I'm just gonna do a quick recap of the Hurricanes and Duke game that I just watched, which was a really good game. Um, and I'm just gonna go over just like instant reaction, whole lot of thoughts that I have. I've highlighted maybe I don't know 15 or 20 plays that I want to talk about, and then I've just got some random thoughts on a few different things as well. We'll talk about the fact that Manny Diaz came back to Coral Gables, played a football game. Talk about that. Before we get into all this, my name is Jordan Harris. I'm your favorite host in the entire world, and this is Sports Truth. Please do like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. We've been getting a lot of positive reviews on this channel, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the positive vibe, so thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some of the highlights, some of the plays that I saw, and some of the things that stood out in my mind. Um, please stick around for me talking about the defense on this because I've got a lot of thoughts on that. A lot. So, anyway, I want to talk about the first touchdown. So, Cam Ward spinning around circles, doing his pirouette thing, looks up the field, sees two Hurricanes behind the closest Duke defender, throws it over the Duke defender's head for a touchdown to Restrepo. Cam Ward, before he signed with the Hurricanes, and even after he signed with the Hurricanes, I had big expectations for him. But I would be lying to y'all if I told y'all I thought he was gonna be this good. He is. He has been ridiculous. And what this reminds me of, if you've watched the channel, you know that I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan too. So this reminds me of the years where we had Jameis Winston, and I knew Jameis was gonna be bad because he came from Florida State, and Florida State doesn't. Anyway, so Jameis Winston was my Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, and he threw for over 30 interceptions in 1 year, and we ended up going like I think it was 500 that year, or maybe one game above. I think we went 9-7 that year, and I remember telling people, my Bucks don't look that great, but we are one competent quarterback away from going to the playoffs and making a deep run in the playoffs. I kept telling people that. I said, if our quarterback throws 30 plus interceptions and we win 9 games, think if our quarterback only throws 8 interceptions or 9 interceptions. So, and then of course Tom Brady came in. He's more than a competent quarterback, and we won the whole thing. We won the Super Bowl. This reminds me of that so much. I thought last year, and if you watch the videos, I said multiple times about Tyler Van Dyke. I kept saying we are one competent, not a great quarterback, one competent quarterback away from being a really good team. I wasn't saying a national championship team, but a 10 to 11 win team is what I felt. As long as you don't just throw the ball to the other team every game 2 or 3 times, I'm like, we could win probably 10 or 11 games. And that's exactly what's happened here. We've always had a decent defense. We've always had not always. These last couple of years, our offensive line has been really good. Our receivers, our offensive weapons have always been pretty good. It's just our quarterback play has been so subpar that it drops everything down. And as y'all know, quarterback is the most important part of a team, right? So when your quarterback is throwing the ball to the other team, you can't win any games. And like I said earlier, this team reminds me so much of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that won the whole thing with Tom Brady. Everything was there except the quarterback. Now that we have the quarterback, look out. That's all I can say. So, yeah, that first touchdown was crazy. He's spinning in circles and throws it on a rope for like 40 or 50 yards. That was crazy. Talk about the next play. We ended up punting the ball on the next drive, which it was 4th and 7, I believe, which I thought was the wrong call. But then again, that's exactly because I wanted to go for it. We were on like, I think, their 40-yard line or something. And I felt like we could get just about whatever we wanted to against this Duke defense, especially early. It looked like receivers were open all over the place. And on that 3rd and 7, Cam Ward just missed a receiver. He just missed him. He was open. He just missed the throw. So I'm thinking, go ahead and run it. Go ahead and run another play, another pass play, spread them all out. Cam Ward's going to find somebody open, or he's going to run right up the middle and get a first down like he typically does. That was my thought process. Didn't go for it. Ended up punting the ball away. And it ended up being the right decision because what happened was I think it was the actual first play, we ended up punting the ball to the 4 or 5 yard line, down at the 4 or the 5. Duke is throwing the ball out of the end zone. We rushed just 4 and then dropped the rest of the 7 back, played coverage, and their quarterback threw an interception, threw it right to Mish Powell, right to him, looked like a punt, threw it right to him. So obviously punting the ball there was the right decision. My crazy mindset of go for it was not the right decision. I guess that's why I'm not making millions of dollars coaching college football right now. I do want to know, what were y'all's thoughts on that? Did you think that we should have punted that ball since it was so early? Or did you want to go ahead and put the pedal to the metal like I was wanting to do and go for it on that 4th and 7 on that second possession that we had? The next thought that I had about this game is Isaiah Horton. Y'all heard me say before, I was not impressed with Isaiah Horton last year at all. This year, he looks really good. He might be the best offensive. How can I say this? Because I want to exclude the wide receiver. No, I want to exclude the offensive line and the quarterback. So I'll say when it comes to receivers and running backs, all the skill positions out there, I believe Isaiah Horton is probably the best NFL prospect that we have on the field. Xavier Restrepo is a really good receiver. Sam Brown's a really good receiver. But Horton is like 6'3" or 6'4". He runs really solid routes. And the thing that's most impressive with him is that he catches almost everything with ease. He doesn't use his chest to catch it. And when you play in the NFL, I learned from Shannon Sharp. I watch Shannon Sharp just about any chance I get because he talks football. He teaches me football so much. But anyway, he talked about when you in college, the windows are this big. But when you get to the NFL, the windows are like this. So whenever you're running a route and you've got the corner right behind you, draped over you, when the ball's coming to you, you cannot be waiting on the ball to come to you, or the corner is going to reach over and slap the ball down. He was saying when you're in the NFL, the windows are so tight that as a receiver, your job is to reach for the ball, like meet the ball in the air with your hands, grabbing it and then moving it away from the defender after you catch it. So if you're waiting on the ball to come to you, you can't do all that. But if you're reaching your hands out, you're catching it and then moving the ball away from the defender as you continue to run or go to the ground, that's what the NFL coaches and all of them, executives, that's what they want to see. And Isaiah Horton is doing that already as a sophomore. So I think that's super impressive. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is we're getting close to the defense here. So if you look at this, I felt like the defense played a lot better this game, but when you look at the score and you see how many points Duke put up, it's like, man, we got to be better than that, especially when you look at how many points Duke is scoring against other teams. They're not this team that's putting up 40 points against everybody. So for them to put up 30-plus points against us, it's kind of like, man, what's going on? So I think I do know what's going on. Um, I think somebody needs to tell Coach G to settle down. Just settle down. And I'll get to that a little bit more in the future. But that's my main thing is like, he's got to settle down. And I'll explain that, okay? So the first Duke touchdown drive, y'all have heard me say before, we've got to move to more of a bend but don't break style defense. We cannot keep allowing these 3 and 4 play touchdown drives. How are these 3 and 4 play touchdown drives happening? We are like going balls to the wall, excuse my language, but balls to the wall, blitzing 6 or 7 players and leaving all of these corners who struggle to tackle and struggle to take good angles. We're blitzing 6 or 7 people and putting everybody man on man in space. Why would you do that? Like I can't process that. I've watched, trust me, I understand Coach G knows a ton of football and I know this much about football. I'll say that. But I've watched a lot of it and I know, just logic tells me, if your team has a history of struggling with tackling and they have a history of taking poor angles in the open field, why would you blitz everybody and leave no help over the top? And you know they're going 5 wide consistently. So that means if 4 receivers run all to the right and they leave 1 receiver on the left, you leave this corner on an island to make a tackle. And 9 times out of 10, he's missing that tackle and he's running 40 or 50 yards for a touchdown. It drives me crazy. So let's just talk a little bit more about the plays. So the first 2, I think it was 2 drives that Duke went out there, they didn't do anything. Why? Because we didn't do anything tricky. We didn't do anything cute. We played coverage. We rushed 4. Every now and again, he would blitz Maui Noah off the edge, and he ended up getting a stop in the backfield, worked perfectly. But then all of a sudden, Coach G started getting cute on stuff. Um, it's driving me crazy, y'all. I'm telling you, it's driving me crazy. So the first Duke touchdown, with 4 minutes and 34 seconds left in the first quarter, he had a crazy blitz that he called. Ended up getting a big completion after that. Okay, then the next possession, they ended up scoring a touchdown that tied it 14-14. What did he do on that play? He blitzed 6 people, had 7 drop back. Not enough. Not enough. So he blitzed 6 people, had 5 drop back. Sorry. That's just not enough. You cannot do that with this team. They don't tackle well enough. You've got to rely more on gang tackling instead of just bailing out and hoping that you sack the quarterback, which we weren't getting much pressure on the quarterback all game, but you're just what it seems like he's gambling on one of two things. We're either going to get a sack or we're going to give up a touchdown. And if you remember, it was in the third quarter. I think it was the first drive of the third quarter. It was a fourth down that they were going for on like the 6-yard line or something like that. And I swear to y'all, not making this up, it was 4th and 1. I said, we're either going to sack them or they're going to score a touchdown. There's not going to be a gain of 1, first down at the 4-yard line. There's not going to be any of that. It's going to be either a sack in the backfield or it's going to be a touchdown, one or the other. And then what ended up happening? Touchdown. Because the reason why I say we've got to tell him to settle down is it seems like when we get into these situations of 3rd and 4, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, he doesn't know how to just say, I'm going to have my front 4 rush. I'm going to have my 3 linebackers guarding the tight ends, the running backs, and the run play, and then I'm going to drop my other 4 back. It seems like he doesn't know how to do that. His whole game plan is selling out completely on this stuff. 3rd and short, 4th and short, it's just boom or bust every time. We're rushing everybody, and as soon as the running back gets through the first wave, there's no other waves left. It's a touchdown, baby. Or Saint gets in the backfield and stops him for a loss of 2. It's just one or the other. He's got to settle down with his defensive play calls. Got to. Okay, let's talk a little bit more progressing in this game here. But let me know, am I tripping? Or are y'all seeing this stuff too? Are you seeing this? Like, is he not just like the sellout king this year? He wasn't doing this stuff last year. And it feels like this year he is just the sellout king. We're going to rush 8 and just drop 3. And if your running back gets past this first 8, it's a touchdown. That's what it seems like. But the thing that drove me crazy about that, after those first 2 Duke drives, we dropped people back, we played coverage, and it seemed like their quarterback, Malik Murphy, was struggling. Like he didn't know what he was doing. There was even one angle where they showed him throw the ball from the end zone. He threw like a 40-yard pass down the field that got intercepted. But as soon as he threw it, he put his hands on his head like, oh, I messed up. So when you see a quarterback doing that, you know he's not seeing the field. You know the game is a little sped up for him. So it kind of, I grew up playing basketball, so I give a lot of analogies based on basketball. My favorite player was Carmelo Anthony. And as y'all know, he was a bucket. He could score the ball like crazy. And I've watched almost every dribble of Carmelo Anthony, I'm telling you. Almost every dribble is crazy. Never missed a game. But with Melo, like every now and again, he would get off to a bad start. He'd be 0 for 5, 0 for 6. And I'm like, oh man, he don't have it going today. What would he always do? He would always either try to get to the free throw line so he can get some easy buckets and see the ball go through the net and get some confidence that way. Or the coach would draw up some kind of play where he would come off a screen and roll, and every now and again you'll have like the defender not switch and leave Melo wide open, and then Melo shoots a wide open jumper, makes that, and then he reels off like he makes the next 9 out of 10 shots or something crazy like that because he saw the ball go through the net. It made his confidence go from here to up here. That's what I feel like we did with Malik Monk. Jeez Louise. That's what I feel like we did with Malik Murphy today. First, He couldn't see the field because there was coverage all over the place. And then all of a sudden, Coach G starts sending players, blitzing left and right, trying to make people cover all these different things, doing all this fancy stuff. And he was leaving people wide open. He was leaving people one on one. So, like, they were able to have a receiver run a 10-yard up and out route, and there's no help. So he just throws it up, and he catches the ball on the sideline, one toe down, goes out of bounds. A couple plays later, touchdown. His confidence level went from way down here when he was throwing the ball and saying, "Oh, I messed up." It went from there to all the way up here in just a few plays because we changed what we were doing on defense. We got too greedy and too aggressive. After that, he was feeling pretty good about himself. So that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of a struggling basketball player who didn't have it going, but then the defense made a big mistake. They allowed the basketball player to see the ball go through the net, and his confidence level shot through the roof after that. And Malik Murphy, he played pretty good after those first couple drives. And I think it's because we gave it to him. We've got to adapt. I'm going to keep saying this for the rest of the year. We've got to adapt a bend but don't break defense. We've got to. This team does not tackle well enough, especially in space. They don't take angles well enough. So we have to just make these quarterbacks prove that they can be disciplined enough to have a 10 to 12 play drive and just take what the defense gives them the entire time. I would bet that doesn't happen most of the time. I would bet eventually there's going to be a tip ball that gets intercepted. There's going to be a fumble on one of the tackles. Something like that will happen before there's 7 touchdown drives. That's just how I feel about the game. So that's how I feel about this team, I should say. Okay, so like I said earlier, he started 1 for 6 with 1 interception. That's how Malik started the game. And then after we started blitzing, after that second possession for Duke, he went 10 for 12 with a touchdown. So Coach G has just got to settle down. Let's not try to be the hero here. Just play the game as it presents itself, and we will win. Your offense is going to score points. Your defense just cannot give up 30 points and a half or anything crazy like that, and they'll be just fine. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is a Cam Ward touchdown that he had. He did a quarterback draw. I thought that was super cool. It's been maybe once or twice we've seen an actual run play called for the quarterback this year. I love to see that. Of course, you don't want to see your quarterback get hurt, so you don't want to put him in that situation too much, but we've got to keep the defense honest. We've got to keep them honest. If they just want to put 4 in the box and we've got 5 offensive linemen, like, go ahead and do a quarterback draw and get you 10 yards and get down, you know? And for us to do a quarterback draw and score a touchdown on it, I thought that was big. That leads me to another point. So Martinez, I love the way he's running the ball. I love the way he's running the ball right now. My brother and I watch football together a whole lot. He's a 49ers fan. I'm a Bucs fan. And what he laughs at me about is when I tell him that players in football, one of the things that I don't think happen enough is people pushing the pile. Whenever I see a running back running the ball and they get stood up at like 1 or 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, they just get stood up. I'm always screaming, push the pile. That happened twice this game, and it happened maybe 2 games ago, maybe against Cal. I don't remember what the other game was, but when Martinez or Cam Ward's running the ball this game, every time it seemed like each time they got stood up, the offensive line got behind and pushed the pile forward, like 4 to 8 yards down the field. That's like I don't know, it's like a forgotten art to football, it seems. It seems like people don't do that nearly as much anymore. Usually when a running back gets stood up, everybody just stands there and looks. And I'm screaming, push the pile. You can go and get 5 more yards, doing that. So it was nice to see Cam Ward score a touchdown that way. And then also seeing Martinez I think he ended up getting 7 extra yards. After he got stood up, they pushed him like 7 yards forward before he went down. That was real cool. The next thing I want to talk about is O.J. Frederick Jr. So I did read an article, maybe last week or the week before. I read an article about him, and it was saying that Miami might be having like a blossoming star. And I was like, well, who are they talking about? So I click on it, and I'm like, oh, Frederick, I see. And he's a freshman, a true freshman who came in. I want to say he was a four-star recruit. Every now and again, you get these kind of players who come in under the radar, and they see them performing like crazy in practice, and they go, I'm gonna put him out there and see what happens. That's actually what happened to my brother when he was playing basketball. He was under recruited. He got there, performed well, and the coach was like, I'm going to start you for the rest of the season just because you're playing so well. Every now and again that happens. I'm a huge fan of OJ. So far, he's got, like this game, that interception he had was huge. Huge interception. And he had a really nice return on top of that. I would tell him, bro, pull them. I don't know what's going on. Why these players keep on pulling their pants up so high. He was out there with like some biker shorts on. He had his stuff pulled way up. Get some knee pads in. Protect yourself, brother. Pull them knee pads down over your knees. Protect yourself. Um, Restrepo, he was not the immortal Restrepo that I'm used to seeing, where he catches every single thing. His routes are super crisp. He had, I think it was three drops this game, which I don't ever recall him dropping a pass before, ever. Ever, I don't think. So to see him drop three passes in one game was kind of crazy. Um, he just wasn't all the way himself today, and maybe a little bit of it was his parents were there. He's trying to break this record, or I don't like to say try. He was working to break a record. He was really close to it. He knew the next couple of catches were going to do it, so maybe he was pressing a little too much. But that touchdown that he did, well, first let's talk about the first down that he got at the 2 yard line. I think it was third and short. And he ended up catching the pass and getting to like the 3 yard line and got a first down. And that was right before we took the lead back. What I'll say about that is Xavier Restrepo, one of the reasons why he's in my top 10 favorite Hurricanes of all time, um, is because Michael Irvin being number one. No, I'm sorry. Ed Reed being number one, Michael Irvin being number two. So the reason why Restrepo is in my top 10 of all time is because he has this much punk in him. Zero. Zero punk in Restrepo. We've seen multiple times this year against Cal, against Virginia Tech. He catches the ball, and if he knows if he has it in his mind he's probably a couple yards short, he's not turning around and see who's coming for. He doesn't do any of that. He catches and immediately starts leaning forward to get that first down. Before he even turns his head to see what's coming, he catches the ball and just leans into it to get the first down. He has no punk in him. So if you go back and look at that, before we took the lead in the third quarter, or fourth, I think it was the third quarter, he catches the ball and gets that first down. A lot of players on our team wouldn't have gotten that. But Restrepo will get that first down 10 out of 10 times. Catch, lean, then look. That's his motto apparently, because it continues to work and I love it. The play that I want to talk about though is the Restrepo touchdown. So that was such a cool play because it broke the game wide open. Broke the game completely open. But it was cool to see him break the record for receptions and yards, like on the same play. That was crazy how that happened. So cool to see Restrepo doing that. The touchdown, long touchdown. I was actually hoping he was going to break the record on that drop that he had at it was a 35, 40-yard pass or something like that. And he just dropped it at the 2 yard line, something like that. I don't know. But that would have been like the record-breaking catch. He would have caught it and probably fell into the end zone. It would have been a touchdown. But then his next catch ended up being what did it. I thought that was pretty cool. Another thought that I had about this game was I was surprised. I was surprised that Duke never did do a fake field goal or a fake punt. Like I was waiting on it to happen, and it seemed like there were two different times where I was like, "Are they about to fake this one?" And they didn't do it. It was like right there towards the end of the game when the game started to get away from them. We got a touchdown, went up 4. I think we went up 4, and then they got the ball back, and then they punted it. I don't remember exactly, but I kept saying this has got to be a fake because it was like 4th and 3, 4th and 4, and they were just on the other side of the 50-yard line. I'm like, oh, I would definitely fake it here. And it was two different times right there in the third and fourth quarter that I was actually shocked that they didn't try a fake punt. That was my thoughts on that. The last few things that I want to talk about is mainly about coaching. So I do think that Coach G is struggling like crazy. Um, I think he's struggling. I think he's doing too much. If you remember last year, I talked about our offensive coordinator, Dimples, as I call him. Um, People were throwing crazy shade at him, saying he didn't know what he was doing. And I kept telling folks, like, I honestly believe he knows what he's doing. I see people wide open. I think he's just hampered by a bad quarterback. Van Dyke is just a bad quarterback, and he's making the offensive coordinator look trash. I thought Dimples knew what he was doing last year, and his players failed him. Right now, when I look at Coach G, I feel like the players are there. He's just trying to do too much. Like sometimes if you have an Ed Reed back there or you have the safeties we had last year, you can call certain plays and their IQ, their football IQ is so high they're gonna make plays just based on what they read. Like they read things differently. These guys that we have now are not the guys we had last year. But that doesn't mean that the guys we have now suck. They're just different. So the plays that he's calling, all I can say, he's got to relax. If it's 3rd and 4, it does not mean you got to do an all-out blitz and stop him for a sack. You don't have to do that every time. Just play the down, play coverage sometimes, allow your defenders to bat the ball down, and then make them punt the ball. It doesn't have to result in a sack every time. Um, I'm I'm praying he gets that figured out, man. It's driving me crazy, as y'all can probably tell. Um, Manny Diaz, I I like Manny Diaz a lot. Seems like a real nice guy. I like the guy a lot. Not enough for him to win in Miami though. I would never root for him to win in Miami against our Hurricanes. But he said the right things the entire week. He talked about his fond memories of coaching the Hurricanes and how he's a different man now. He had some kind of deep saying, something about crossing a river or something a little deeper than I am. But I like the guy and I root for him, just not against our Hurricanes, obviously. He seems like his heart is in the right space. He went and had a really successful, not a successful career, but he had a really successful couple of years after leaving the Hurricanes. Built his way back up to being a head coach now, and I think he's going to have a whole lot of success at Duke. And then I believe that he's going to end up leaving Duke and going somewhere else and coaching even a bigger program than Duke. I'm a big fan of his. I hate the fact that he had to lose. Well, no, I don't, because he's playing against the Hurricanes. I like the guy. I've got a soft spot for him. I liked him when he coached the Hurricanes. I just didn't think he was quite good enough. He wasn't quite ready at the time. And then when I heard about like either Manny Diaz or Mario Cristobal, it was obvious to me. Mario Cristobal, obvious. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the guy, Diaz. Let me go through my notes real quick just to make sure I did touch everything that I wanted to talk about here. Yep, that's all I want to talk about. So that's all that I got for you today. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this game. Cam Moore performed well, thankfully. He's still performing well. Everybody's been talking about how he's going to crash and burn towards the end of the season, but he's still performing well. There is one thing that I got to talk about. So I have two different things that I talk about when it comes to quarterbacks. One of them is a WTHI. That is a what the heck interception. So that's one of the things I talk about with quarterbacks. And then the other one is a FAI. That's falling apart interception. So if you watch a quarterback like Tyler Van Dyke, for instance, he had a lot of FAIs last year and the year before where you could tell he was getting overwhelmed and then he would throw an FAI, just like throwing it right to a defender, like right into the chest of a linebacker. Or he'd be backpedaling and just throw the ball straight up in the air, after having like 6 straight incompletions. And then he throws a ball that almost gets intercepted. He drops back and then throws a ball way up in the air, and then that one gets intercepted. That's what I call FAI interceptions. That's when your quarterback is just succumbing to the pressure and is falling apart. That's where FAI is coming to play. The other one is what Cam Ward did today, and it's what Cam Ward did against Cal. It's the what the heck interception, where he's rolling to the right, throwing it real high across the middle of the field, trying to get it to the other side. We got to stop doing that, my man. Got to stop doing that, my G. Can't do that anymore. Okay. It's not working. It doesn't work. It stopped working in high school. It probably didn't work in middle school. So it's definitely not going to work Division I football. Had to talk about that. This is the second time we've seen it, and it's like the worst interceptions I've maybe ever, some of the worst I've ever seen. And it's not falling apart interceptions because he's playing well before and after the interception. The falling apart interception is when it's going bad before and then it continues to go bad after. That's falling apart interceptions. But anyway, that's all that I got for you today. I appreciate you watching the video. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. So take care. God bless. Peace. We undefeated, y'all. We still undefeated, baby.